It might be scheduling. It might be how you're taking appointments. But there's an inefficiency there. All my friends, the Ultimate OD Podcast. Great episode for you today. We are looking at the inefficiencies of our office and trying to make our offices run more smoothly. I guarantee you have 1, 2, maybe 3 inefficiencies that you need to address yesterday. Let's do it now. This is the Ultimate OD Podcast. Here we go. All right, my friends, the Ultimate OD Podcast. Very fun episode for you today. It's just something that's been on my mind. It's something I've been thinking about and trying to make better in my office. So this is something that if you're not thinking about for your office, you need to think about it now. And I'll start off with a book I'm reading right now. Is a pretty interesting book. It's just a fun memoir of someone that kind of was pretty successful throughout life, made it to Wall Street, etc. But the thing that he kept saying is you have to know the game that you're playing. And as he's going through his childhood, he just remarks about the observations he's made, whether it's a caddy at a golf course, when he's in college joining a frat, to when he was an intern at an investment company, what he observed. And when he was at the golf course, there was a guy that was, he was caddying and doing as much as he could, and there was a guy that was playing like dice or something, or cards at the where all the caddies would hang out. And at the end of the day, the guy playing dice, or I think it was gin maybe, was making more than he was caddying. And he's like, how do you do that? What's going on? And the guy was cheating, right? But he's like, after I learned that he was cheating, it's not that I stopped playing with him. It's just I knew what the game was. The game was that we were playing. And when he was in college, he was going to rush a frat. Or actually before that, when like 1950s, 60s in the University of Kentucky, when you went to college, everyone that was eligible was accepted to the University of Kentucky. Well, the University of Kentucky couldn't keep all these students, so the first 2 semesters, their goal was to get rid of as many bad students as possible, and one of the ways they did that was English 101. And he knew that was the story. So what did he do? He worked his tail off at English 101, got an A, and then coasted from there. When he was going to join a frat, he went to a couple of different frats, and then he said, I don't like rushing all these things. I don't like going to these parties. He just called up the frat he wanted. He said, hey, instead of doing X, Y, and Z, doing all this, I just want to go to your frat and, make me a pledge. If you could give me a pledge pin, that'd be great. And he said he actually got it, but if he would have known what the game was or how the game was played, he probably wouldn't have done that, because that's not how it works. But he just did it and made it happen, right? And there's a lot of stories like this where he's like, you think the game's one thing, and it's actually something else. Well, what is the game that we're playing in our offices? And right now, a couple of staff members have left, and we're hiring again. And it's just a constant cycle. It's something that always happens, and it's not like we're short-staffed. But the problem is, we've made our optical so, I don't want to say difficult, but the way we do things is hard to hire staff. They need to be at a high level, be able to process a lot of information. And it's frustrating. And when I got the resignations of the 2-week notice of my 2 staff members that are leaving, it was just kind of okay, what's the business? What do we need to do? What's going on? And it's funny because my managers came to me, they're like, oh man, we're going to have to downschedule. We're going to have to, what if we have 3 people that go into optical or X, Y, or Z? And I'm like, that happens once, every 2 weeks, maybe, right? And then they were worried about phones. I'm like, well, we'll put people to answer the phones. And it opened up my eyes to looking at my business and where are weak points. And I've told you, and I continue to tell you, I want to grow and I want to scale. Well, if it's so hard to fill a position, you're never going to scale. And I brought my managers in this morning. I've been just thinking about it, and our system in optical has to change. And then they're like, well, maybe you can just do this and that. And they're taking our current system and polishing it or slightly changing it, right? And I'm like, no. We need to do it differently. We have a spreadsheet where you just put in copays and it gives them what it needs to be. I'm like, we're thinking second pairs, this and that. Let's just sell one pair of glasses and then worry about the rest later. Like, let's make it simple. I'm like, blow this effer up. Let's start from scratch, make it simple. And they're like, oh. And they're looking at me and they're kind of starting to get it. And I to illustrate the point, I looked at them and said, put it this way. If I told you we're starting a new office tomorrow and we're not going to have optical, I'd feel pretty freaking good about it. I know exactly what we're going to do. We have the staff. It's easy to get staff in there. The doctor does what they do. The front desk, we have this place smoothed out. We know how to run it. I can start a million offices, don't put optical, and we're fine. 100% fine, we know what to do. And they're like, yep, I feel pretty good about that. Now reverse the situation, and we're starting a practice, and all we have is optical. How do you feel about that? Oh, we're not ready. We can't do that. We got to get people trained and ready. What the heck? Why is it like that? I'm like, that's the problem. That will never scale if this is how we run our optical. And when you go through and do this and look at the things where you're inefficient or where the weaknesses are in your business, you have to take a step back and go through every single process, right? I guarantee you have inefficiencies in what you're doing. It might be scheduling, it might be how you're taking appointments, but there's an inefficiency there. And I know we hear it all the time, but it comes down to this is the way we've always done it, right? And I'm just like so sick of it. Optical is my big thing that we have to really dumb it down and simplify it, right? Less options is one of the things that we're thinking. This is what you have, take it or leave it. And when we were starting off, we take a person out, they come out, we hand them off to one optician, and it's a 1-to-1 ratio. They get all the time. Well, as we grow, we cannot just have one optician per one patient. We're going to have 2 doctors in the office and sending multiple people into optical. They have to be able to deal with multiple patients. One optician should be able to handle 2 to 3 patients. Now, again, it's changing our scope, our dynamic. I told my staff, if we were killing it, and I'm talking about like $1,000 sales every single time, if we were a boutique office that just specialized in the high end, you can do that. We are not that office. And if you look at our numbers, we're average at best, maybe a little bit better, but we're not where I think we should be. So what's it going to hurt to blow this sucker up and let's get simple. Just sell a pair of glasses, right? We want the AR, we want the polycarbonate, Trivex, whatever you want to have. But this is your base lens. Do you want transitions? Do you want a bullet filter? Move on, go. Right? If they want the other things, we'll deal with that. But make it simple. These are your lenses. Period. Right? We're going to play with that. But the whole point of me talking about this is, 1, take a step back and look at what you're doing and where are you inefficient. One of my best friends, he is now the chief operating officer of a huge private equity roofing company. And he'll take his operations guy that he has at his office and send him to other companies and have them just talk to their operations guy and see what they're doing wrong. And I was talking to him today and he says, when I go in there, I just can't wait to see what I'm going to learn. And he goes, the problem is I get there and I'm not learning a whole bunch. I'm just looking at how inefficient all these other companies are. And I guarantee if you took a step back and you watched someone else's office, you'd see inefficiencies. You would, right? Because you're removed from it. But you are so ingrained in what you do, your staff hates change, and you don't want to implement the change. So you're just like, this is just what we do. It can't be done another way. It won't work with my patient population. It's great that you're doing this here. So many things that I've said that about the past few years. photos on every patient, daily lenses, pre-appointing, just you name it. I've said, that doesn't work in my office. But you know what? I just sucked it up and said, I'm going to do it. And you know what's happening? I'm doing it. IPL. My patients won't pay this. They're doing it. They're paying it, right? You just have to forge ahead and get through the uncomfortable feeling that you're going to change what you've always done. I do this a lot. Like, we instituted, we used to have computers at every exam room, every workstation. And I looked at them like, these are so expensive. I have to pay a fee to keep them up to date. What if we use Chromebooks? And I said, I'm going to get this Chromebook and I'm going to use it. And you know what? The first week, it sucked. I'm trying to learn. My routine's all off. But after about a week, I'm more efficient. It's better now. I love it. Right? Because I made myself do something different. The same thing goes for wherever you're inefficient. But take a step back. Ask your staff, what are we doing wrong? Where's the pain points? Like, and you don't even, if you ask your staff, where are we inefficient, they're not going to think about it like that. But in the case of my managers, where are we going to be weak? What are you worried about with these two people leaving? We're worried about phones. What are we going to do in optical? Want to change the whole business, want to down schedule because we don't want an optician to work with two patients. Get out of Dodge, right? Stop talking to me about that noise. But because I saw that, I'm like, okay, let's fix our phone issue. It was as simple as cross-training one of our techs to be able to answer phones. When we talked about optical, it's the whole stop trying to polish and make what we have better or fit. Break the whole sucker down. Start from scratch. Square one, blow it up, let's go. Like, well, what if we start losing numbers here? Well, then we go back to what we've always done. But what we're doing right now is not efficient. It's hard to hire. We need to find a better way. Right? And I, again, talk to you guys, send me emails, tell me what you guys do in optical, but I know there's a better way. And it's simplifying the process and making that patient feel acknowledged and get attention when you're working with them. But right now, my staff will have them pick out like 2-3 frames and then sit down and just wait. Are you kidding me? You know how inefficient that is? And they'll sit there for an hour working with a patient and they don't buy. And that's what one of my managers like, you know, what if we do if this or this happens? I go, well, right now in the current situation, X optician spent an hour with these patients and didn't get a single sale out of it. It can't be much worse than that. When this optician, another optician, sat down with this patient, she was a robot repeating the script that we had them say, and the patient was like, it might have been her first day, it just didn't feel natural, and they left the office. I go, it can't get much worse than that. Let's try new things. So that's my suggestion to you, right? You have inefficiencies. Step one, look at your processes, see where you think you're inefficient. Ask your staff, if X, Y, or Z person's gone, what are you worried about? Or if you have a busy day, where is the weakest point? What are we going to miss? Is it getting charts prepped? Is it pricing out or ordering? Is it the scheduling and answering phones? Where are you inefficient? That pain point will tell you what you need to address. And then ask yourself, if you started a new practice and you didn't have optical, would you feel good? Some of you may not actually feel good in that. We don't really have that figured out. Or if the optical is the thing, and a lot of times optical is the thing because you guys, too many offices don't care about the optical. It's not what doctors do. It's such a huge part of our revenue process, you have to pay attention to it. Right? It has to get some kind of TLC from you. Give it attention and make it easily scalable. You simplify and do that, and your processes, your office will be better for it. So look at what you got, Shoot me a line. Tell me, what are you changing in your office? Where are you inefficient? Great minds, help each other out. A rising tide raises all ships. Put it in a chat. Send me an email. Let's get better together. That's what I got. We'll have more for you next week. Where has the time gone? We are to the closing thought of the episode, and today I will leave you with this. If you're listening to this, if you're going to be an eye doctor, if you are an eye doctor, if you have an office, you're successful. Period. You've had a ton of successes along the way to get to this point, right? The thing that you have to remember, and this is really stinking hard to do because you have been so successful along the way, is you alone are not the reason for your success, right? You got here with a lot of help, a lot of support, a lot of luck. Now, I know the saying, the harder I work, the luckier I get. When you work really hard, it will present you with opportunities that will just happen to fall in place, right? And I'm a firm believer in that. But the trap that you have because of your success is that you did it. That you're just naturally going to show up and you're going to be successful. When you start believing that you are the magic that makes things happen, that you're the secret sauce, you're going to fall on your face. You're going to fail. You can be confident that you know how to work. You know the process that you have to do. Don't lose sight of the fundamental nuances, the work ethic that got you to this point. Yes, you're successful. Yes, you're probably better than average. But because you were a little worried, because you worked so hard, because you had that fear about you that it might not work out, you've got to this point. Don't let success breed failure. That's what I have for you. Dr. Lilly out.